Hey, what's up everybody? Dr. Tom here. I thank you for taking a few minutes of your day to watch our video. And in this video, we are talking mobility in our Zoom to Health series. We made January the month of mobility, and that's for the sake of discussion only. Because if you're only gonna do one physical thing throughout the day, I would tell you to make it about your mobility. Because your mobility is that important, that vital to the overall health and function of your body. In our Zoom to Health series, we started off with posture. I made posture number one in terms of how important that is to the overall health of your body. Because when our posture is on point, you have great communication, near perfect communication between your body and your brain back to your body. So the posture is incredibly important to the overall function of your overall health, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally. We also followed up with and talked about energy. Aside from pain or a problem in one specific area of your body, energy is probably the number one problem people will have. The lack of energy, the feeling of fatigue, brain fog, all these things that go in with the loss of energy, but it's probably the number one complaint people will have. So one of the points that I made in that talk about energy was energy is a byproduct of proper form and proper function of your body. When your body is doing its job, everything's doing its job, nothing more, nothing less, your body becomes very efficient. Your nervous system becomes very efficient. And that's what gives you that ample amount of energy to go throughout your day. From the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, your body's energized and able to do its job and do its work. Well, mobility follows that same path, okay? It follows that same track. So when we're looking at mobility, it's a byproduct of that proper form and function of your body. So structurally, there is a normal structure to your body. I am a chiropractor. Our focus is on your foundation, your spine, skull, spine, pelvis. So there is a normal structure there. When we deviate from normal, we get to abnormal. So if I'm looking at you from straight on, looking at your spine, I want to see everything nice and centered, straight up, straight down. Your head is centered to your spine, which is centered to your pelvis. We don't want to see any deviations left, deviations right. That is a breakdown in normal structure. So straight up, straight down. It's when we turn you to the side and we look at you from head to pelvis, that's where we want to see those curvatures. We have three normal curves that we're looking for in your spine. The first one being in your neck. We want to see a nice fluid arcing curve towards the front of your body in your neck. Shoulders, between your shoulder blades, that's where the spine dips backwards between your shoulder blades. And then the low back goes back and starts to dip forward again. That's the three normal curves that we're looking for. And we can put this to math. As always, we can put numbers to this. When we have those three curves, the equation is 3 squared plus 1 equals 10. So when we have three normal curves, makes your spine 10 times stronger, 10 times more flexible to handle all the stresses, all the pressures being placed on it. Now, the number one curve that starts to get lost over time for specific reasons, but in the thousands of x-rays that we look at, the number one curve that gets lost is the one in your neck, all right? Forward head posture, all these things that we've talked about in the past. We lose that proper curve in the neck, and now we're down to two curves, the one in the mid back and the one in the low back. So same equation, 2 squared, so two normal curves, 2 squared plus 1 equals 5. Lose one curve, yet you lost 50% of the flexibility, 50% of the strength of your spine, yet it still has to handle all those pressures and all those stresses. And that's where we start to get focal points of stress in your spine, in your body. And that's degeneration. That is the driving force of breakdown in your body. Your body starts to break down at a faster rate due to those stresses. So if we're looking at your body in terms of overall structure, we have your joints, right? Your joints are what move your body. Then you have your muscles that we need to focus on. Your muscles are what move your joints. Your muscles are what move your body. All right. We don't live perfect lives, right? So car accidents that you've been involved in, how many times you fall when you're learning how to ride a bike, if you're learning to ski, how many times do you fall doing that? Well, those problems, those stresses over time, doesn't have to be one specific incident or accident, but those stresses over time start to create breakdown in your muscle tissue. You start to get restrictions in your muscle via scar tissue, all right? We've all seen scars before, right? It's tissue but it's not normal tissue. It's less elastic, it is weaker, and it's more prone to injury. Maybe not just so much for today, but definitely tomorrow. That scar tissue is going to create problems in your body. So we want to start to build up that flexibility. Well, we need to start to break down those restrictions in your muscle tissue. And I think it takes that soft tissue a long time to properly heal. Doing the right things to it, damage to a muscle can take 12 to up to 18 months to really heal and get back on track. So that muscle tissue is extremely important to maintain and stay healthy. And there is a rule to how your body works. It's called the rule of reciprocal inhibition when you're looking at muscles, okay? And basically what it says is, if we have two opposing muscles, if one muscle's tight, the opposing muscle can't be tight as well. So actually what happens is, if one muscle is tight, the opposing muscle gets weak, and that creates imbalances, right? And the more imbalances we create over time, again, that's what speeds up degeneration, so speeds up breakdown. So when we start to look at how to start building mobility, well, we have some hot spots in our body, right? We have some areas in our body that accumulate more stress at a faster rate than other parts of our body when we start to lose that good structure and that proper posture. And the way we start to look at building better muscle function, better mobility, decreasing restriction, I like this progression of 3 movements, all right? And basically it goes down to this. The first one we want to do when we have a restriction in our body, in that muscle tissue, we want to start to release that muscle tissue. And we use tools for this, right? There are tools that we can use. And we talk a lot about this one here, the peanut. It is a muscle release tool. We can use it for the spine. Put it directly on the spine and the muscles of the spine. And we can just start to release that scar tissue, that restricted area in your muscles of the spine. We can use it in other areas of your body to start to release that restriction. So the peanut is a great tool. A tennis ball can do that into the muscles of your spine or the shoulders. Well, we have foam rollers, all right? We use this a great deal into build and releasing restriction through the muscles of your spine. But again, you can use it on hip flexors, your hamstrings, your butt, your glute muscles. This is one foam roller that we use. We have a bigger foam roller that we could take advantage of. Doesn't matter to me. But releasing that muscle tissue, getting massages on a regular basis starts to break up that restriction. Percussion tools is another way we start to release those restrictions. You see commercials for the Theragun. Well, we have our own tools that we use here. Not only can we use percussion, but vibration is a really cool tool as well to start releasing that restriction in your muscles. So that's number 1, release restriction. So secondly, we want to stretch out. So once we release it, well, then we want to put that muscle through a stretch. So whatever the area is that we're looking at, if it's the chest muscle, if it's your hamstring muscle, the main key here, the main component is we want to hold that stretch for 40 seconds. So whatever stretch we're doing, we want to hold it for 40 seconds. That's what allows all those muscle fibers to start to fully release in there. And then once we stretch it, well, then we need to mobilize it. We need to move it, get it moving. So if we start, whatever area of the body is, if we're going to look at, let's say, one of the hot spots that we're looking for is your neck. So not so easy to do this on your own. That's why sometimes having a tool to work the muscles, like a percussion tool or massage, but to start to release those muscles in your neck. It's hard to use a peanut or a foam roller. There's a lot of different tools out there, but it is kind of hard to get into that area. But the neck is one spot that we want to start to release because we build up a lot of restriction there. But releasing that muscle tissue, massage work, percussion tools, get in there, release that tissue. Then we want to stretch it laterally, work through these lateral muscles here, forward, get these muscles back here, backward, get that head up to get into these front neck muscles. Those are good stretches we could do, and holding those spots for 40 seconds, getting that good release in those tissues, and then to mobilize it, right? So for the neck and the upper spine, what we can start to do is chin tucks against the wall. The best way to do it, get everything up against the wall, your head, your shoulders, your butt, your feet, so that you're straight up and straight down, and you start doing a good chin tuck, getting that chin. That's what starts to build good mobility into your neck. Another hot spot is into that mid back, into the low back. Same tools, Great tool. The Peanut, the foam rollers are great release tools you can do on your own every day. It takes a couple minutes of your time to get those done. So get on there and start working those areas with these kind of tools. But the normal movements of your spine, so if we're going to stretch it out, well, one is if we're going to stretch out the lower spine into that mid back, into that low back, just having a seat on a chair, spread the legs about shoulder width apart, and you're just going to bend down to touch the floor. So you're seated, you're just bending down, you're taking the hamstrings out of it by being seated, but then you just bend down and touch the floor, and that starts to release all that muscle tissue into your mid to lower back. And again, hold that for 40 seconds. And then we can add a little bit of angle to it and bend down, touch the left toe, that isolates into the right side of your spine. Bend to touch your right toe, isolates into the left part of your spine. Again, holding those for 40 seconds. Now we're getting all those muscles to release, and then we're going to mobilize it. A great tool that we use in our office to mobilize the spine is our wobble chair. We have wobble cushions for home use, but these doing specific movements on there starts to drive that mobility into the mid to lower spine. Critical to the overall health. Your hips, another vital spot that we start to lose function. How many hip replacement surgeries get done every year because people have lost proper movement, proper ability to move their hips? So we could do the same things. We're going to muscle release, right? Foam roll. Like a foam roll into those hip flexors, the front thigh, up towards the hip. We can foam roll into the glute muscles, into the low back, glute muscles, hamstrings. Kind of hit all those areas, releasing all that muscle tissue. You can get onto the side of your legs with a foam roller. It is not comfortable. You won't be happy with me when you try it because it is that tender in there. But just using even like a tennis ball into those lateral leg muscles, that tissue in there starts to break up that scar tissue and that restriction in there. That's how we release it. And then we're going to stretch it. Hip flexor stretches, all right, quadricep stretches, hamstring stretches, glute stretches. That starts to hit all those muscles around the hip, building that muscle mobility. And then a great movement that we can add to your hips is using one of these bands. These are thick rubber bands. Awesome tool to add to your exercise component, to your tools for exercise, whatever, however you do things here. But these bands are awesome tools here. So you put this around your shoulders, put it down under your feet so that you're standing on it. And then what we're going to do is walk laterally, side to side, about 10 steps each side. Make those muscles work into your hips. That drives good mobility in there. Great way to work those areas. Those are some certain hot spots. Another one too is up into the shoulder girdle. Last one I'll hit on here, just to make a point about this, kind of hitting some key concepts here. But then moving forward, when we talk mobility, we're going to break down and do some specific areas and really hone in on certain areas. But real simple with the shoulder, we want to break up that scar tissue into the front chest muscles. Why? Everything we do is out front. We become very restricted, very tense in this position, hunched forward. Well, we need to open that stuff up. Get those muscles in here moving. Break up that scar tissue in here. Stretch it out. Pec stretches between the door frames. Put your arms up, lean in, stretch all this stuff out 40 seconds again, and then mobilize it. Wall slides, up and down, getting those shoulder blades, shoulder girdle moving. Movements between the shoulder blades with a band. Again, put the band, using the bands as resistance, getting those to move, building that motion into the upper back there. Those are some key components in there to start building, but that's the progression of 3. Release the muscle tissue, stretch it with 40-second stretches, and then mobilize it. And again, we will get into some specific areas. I said in the beginning, mobility is a beast when we're looking at it because your body has so many muscles and joints, so we're really gonna have to break down specific areas. Last thing we need, if we're gonna have good mobility, we need to talk a little bit about balance, and we're gonna follow up and get more specific about balance. But real important, if we don't have good communication between our body and our brain, what ultimately happens is we start to lose balance. Balance is very trainable, very workable, You just need to make it a part of your routine and start working in it. But building better balance builds that proper awareness between space and your body. And that's all balance is. Once we start to lose that awareness, well, that's when we start to become a little less stable, a little less confident on our feet. And that's when we start to create problems with falls and fractures in your, over time, you start to have these problems. So, but building balance is really simple. It's just a matter of doing it. Balance exercises take, a couple minutes, and you can start to build that up. But balance is extremely important to your overall mobility. So I thank you for being with me. I hope you got something out of this video. Again, we're going to follow up and start breaking down specific areas so that we can hone in and really get you moving better, because really what we look to do is to get you to move better and then ultimately to get you to move more often. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. I'd be happy to help you out in your overall path towards better health. 2022 is right here, fresh year, so let's get moving and let's make it a great year. Thanks.